has received a petition from 122 residents regarding the Oxley Meadow Creek Road, and they wish the council to consider sealing of the Oxley Meadow Creek Road through the use of Roads to Recovery funding to ensure it is sealed and safe for tourists and locals alike. Local Law Number 2, Governance and Meeting Procedure, governs the use of petitions, and the recommendation is that the petition regarding the sealing of the Oxley Meadow Creek Road be received, and that the petition be referred to the Chief Executive Officer for report to a future council meeting.
Any questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery. Someone like to move that report, the decision be referred? Councillor Russell, Councillor Curry. Any discussion? Put the motion. Those in favour? Motion carried. No deputations, no council reports, officers' reports, 2018-19 budget. Thank you, Mrs. Malone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council's 2018-19 budget has been out for public consultation for 28 days. During that time, 22 submissions were received from the public, and a number of these submitters addressed Council at their briefing forum last Tuesday night. There was also officer submissions. As a result of submissions received, the resolution to this meeting seeks to amend the draft budget. The recommendation is that Council considers submissions made during the draft 18-19 budget and makes changes to the draft budget in accordance with the supported submissions documented in this report as follows. 1A, increases expenditure by $40,000 to prepare Planning Scheme Amendment C68 Part 2. Increases expenditure by $31,000 for the survey design of shared pathway on Warby Range Road. Increases expenditure by $14,750 to assist with repairs to cricket nets at the Norm Meads Oval. Increases expenditure by $5,000 to support the Wangaratta Local Drug Action Team. Increases expenditure by $6,000 to support a bid for the Mountain Cattlemen's annual get-together. Increases income by $210,000 to reflect increased recycling charges of an additional $15 per bin. Increases expenditure by $210,000 to reflect increased contractor costs of collecting recycling bins. Decreases income by $43,125 to reflect a rebate to pensioners equal to the additional recycling charges of $15 per bin. Defers capital works from 2017-18 to 2018-19 financial years of $4.481 million. Increases 2018-19 capital works expenditure by $259,000. Decreases operating expenditure of $124,000 as a result of officer submissions detailed in this report. Decreases operating income of $1.274 million as a result of officer submissions detailed in this report. Part 2. Adopts the 2018-19 budget attached to this report for the purposes of Section 130 of the Local Government Act, notifies in writing each person or persons who made a submission of the decision and the reasons for that decision in accordance with the responses set out in this report and in accordance with Section 2231D of the Local Government Act. Authorises the CEO to give public notice of Council's decision to adopt the 2018-19 budget, and forwards a copy of the 2018-19 budget to the Minister for Local Government by the 30th of June in accordance with Section 130 of the Local Government Act.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery? Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Curry and Councillor Fitzpatrick.
I'd like to move this motion, but with an additional 2 points.
Thank you.
The first point would be the money put aside in the budget for the Cemetery Master Plan be held until such a time there is a final consideration on the direction of the Cemetery Trust. And second of all, that officers, as a priority, develop a performance measuring system for new projects for approval by council, which makes clear what the objectives of the new project is and how we will measure the report on whether the objective has been met.
Any other questions, comments? Other councillors wish to speak? Yes, second by councillor Patrick.
Yeah, I'd like to speak too, please, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank all the councillors. We have worked hard on this budget and changes and bits and pieces. We have some additional funding for certain items. I'd like to point out the Wangaratta Magpies Cricket Club of $14,750 to be given to them to improve their nets. This is the premier sporting facility in Wangaratta, as proven recently with the Mayor's announcement of our grand final here for the Ovens and Murray. So I think this improvement to this area is certainly well worth its while. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lynch. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Been a lot of work going into this budget, and I think it's a great budget, and it's really great to see $6,000 in the budget to support the Mountain Cattlemen's Association, and I think this will go a long way to get this event here into the little city of Wangaratta. So if Graham Stone from Mansfield's listening, it's up to him now to make sure we get here to Wangaratta. I'm of the opinion that we are building Wangaratta very, very carefully, and that if we build, people will come here. We're also investing a lot of money into sport, and I think that this is important to build healthy minds, healthy bodies and healthy communities. I think it's just as important to socialise at these sporting facilities as it is to play the sport. And so I certainly support how much money is being put into the sporting facilities here in Wangaratta. We're investing a lot of money in the organics plant at North Wangaratta, and that's turning grass and sticks into black potting mix and fertiliser for agricultural enterprises. In a few years, I can see this to be an emerging business where we're value adding with high quality potting mix and things like that. So I hope that evolves over the next few years. In the rural communities, our rural communities are very, very important. And it's great to have the support as a rural councillor, the support of the officers and my council colleagues. $1.47 million for country road resheeting. I think that's absolutely important, and that's where you put gravel on top of an old road to rejuvenate it. $507,000 to build and seal 3 kilometres of road in the rural city of Wangaratta. That's the first time we've done that for years and years. And I think that's a new beginning for the council to start and build new roads. $177,000 more women's change rooms, more money being spent in the rural area. $155,000 Middlewood Township Development Plan, $370,000 in township road sealing, putting tar and stones on top of dirty old dusty gravel roads. So that's important. $693,000 for the Mooryu street works. It's the gateway to the King Valley. It'll be great to see Mooryu by Christmas time. It'll look absolutely fantastic. $640,000 for rural communities, placemaking. We put the rural communities front and centre. I think that's important too. This is the first time that I can stand up here and say to the people of the Southern Ward that the bloody town doesn't stop at the Hume Freeway. For years and years, they felt neglected, and not anymore. And I think that's fantastic. And to do that takes a good team, a really good team. So I would like to thank the Mayor, my fellow councillors and officers for the great work in this budget, particularly for the rural area.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? No. Councillor Benn. What's your opinion?
Well, I'd like to endorse Councillor Bussell's remarks, and specifically in the infrastructure area. I think it needs to be pointed out that over the last 6 years that we've increased that lead shedding. The figure's gone to 1.4 million, whereas 6 years ago it was around 400,000. It's still not enough. We know that, but we can only got so many biggies in the barrel to spend. So it's been a good effort by us all to be able to get it as far as we can.
Councillor Fuller? I'd just like to comment on a couple of things, and one certainly is the fact that we have been able to accommodate some money in the budget to assist the Wangaratta Football Netball Club in hosting the grand final this year. It's 24 years since Wangaratta were lucky enough to host the Ovens and Murray grand final, and when it was suggested early in the year that we look at assisting them, councillors were right behind that, and as we all know now, it was successful, and the council are looking forward to really showpiecing that ground down there. The other thing that I think that I should mention is Councillor Bussell has mentioned sporting facilities. The work that we've done in improving Park Lane and putting in the parking down there for the junior sport. This year we're hoping that we'll be a long way down with the refurbishment of the Bar 2 Oval, which we're looking to become the main oval in the Bar Reserve. So that there is money in the budget for that as well. So there's just a couple of things that I think that we should mention to the public. Councillor Curry.
I'd just like to thank all the council with their input that they have done. There's been a lot of hard work that has gone into this budget. I think the only thing that Harry missed was about economic development, but I think that was really well covered, Harry. Thank you. I think with the public's feedback, the budget, this particular budget is a clear strategic direction about where we're heading, and that's only thanks to the input of everybody. We, as a group of councillors, we talked about economic development in Wangaratta and trying to grow that. There is a real focus moving forward around that and delivering outcomes around the municipality with this budget. And yeah, I'd just like to say, once again, reiterate, thank everybody. Thanks for the council and thanks for all the input that they have done, because they've done a lot of hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Mrs. Nevo, adoption of the rating strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council's rating strategy was prepared with the assistance of a rating strategy reference group and has been on public exhibition for 28 days along with the budget. Specific proposals that impact the 2018-19 financial year are the splitting of the commercial and industrial rating differentials into two separate categories, the reducing of the rate in the dollar for Rural 1 and Rural 2 properties as a result of the draft revaluation of properties at 1 January 2018. There are a couple of recommendations that will come in the following financial year, and they are the introduction of a new differential for a mixed use category on the 1st of July 2019, and the introduction of a new differential general rate where a property has been vacant for 3 years. The recommendations relevant to the 18-19 financial year have been incorporated into the budget, and the recommendation is that Council adopts the draft rating strategy 2018-2022.
Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery? Someone like to move the recommendation? Move Councillor Roos, second Councillor Curry. Any discussion? Councillor Bussell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's always very difficult for rural people when rates go up. I think 2.25 is a modest amount. And I know there's going to be a lot of tail flicking going on out there amongst some of the farmers. But just remember, the money that's spent on roads has to come from somewhere. So there's no point flicking your tail and getting angry. Just accept that's what it has to be. And we're moving forward. We are building Wangaratta, and we build it for everybody. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Curry.
I just want to make sure that the community understands that with this change, there is no extra dollars coming into the council. It's still the same pool of money. It's just being distributed in a different proportion against different rating categories. So there's been current valuations that have changed, and some places may have changed with the valuations. And from what I understand, some of them have changed significantly. But at the end of the day, the same pool of money is still being brought into council. There is no additional income other than the rate potentially increase.
Any other councillors? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take this moment to acknowledge that tonight is Director Neeburn's last council meeting, and I just want to, on behalf of the group, thank her for all of her help and guidance throughout the time that we've been with her, and wish her all the best in her next endeavour. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Community Wellbeing, 14.1.
Through the chair, just before we launch into that section, I might just take the opportunity to introduce Penny Hargrave to the gallery. Jamie Carroll, who's the Director of Community Wellbeing, is not here tonight, so Penny Hargrave, who is the Manager of Arts, Culture and Events in Jamie's team, is standing in her place tonight.
Thank you. So this report is presented to Council for consideration to endorse the Rural Placemaking Project Plans and Year 1, which is 2018-2019 priority projects for implementation. Council is endorsing these plans now so that implementation can commence next financial year. We will continue to work with rural communities to review and update plans to ensure they remain current and reflect priorities of rural communities. The plans have been developed after extensive consultation with the communities, and there have been 2 rounds of consultation. The first round was designed to gather baseline information and included pop-up sessions, an online survey and a rural photography competition. The second round of consultation was designed to test those projects and priorities, to assess those priorities and make sure that they met the needs of the district, and also to understand the most important priorities. This was done through holding events in each of the districts. The placemaking plans will be utilised to inform and guide the delivery of projects and the support and service provided to rural communities throughout the municipality. The plans have been categorised into large infrastructure delivery, small infrastructure delivery, planning, investigation, advocacy, design and council support. And you can see the depth of the work that's gone on, and more information is available in the reports. We will continue to work with rural communities to review and update plans and ensure they remain current and reflect the priorities of rural communities. So the recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the following rural placemaking project district plans, which include Greta Valley District, King Valley District, Northern District, Ovens Valley and Snow Road, and 2 endorses the Year 1 priority projects for implementation.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery? I'd like to move the recommendation. Councillor Curry, Councillor Benton. The other ward councillor missed out. Any discussion? Councillor Fuller.
I would just like to acknowledge the effort put in from the team here, but also the Projecta team who did the consultation work out there. It's great to have got the feedback that we have, and it's great to see some of the fruition of what will come from this project happening out in our rural communities. They're a vital part of our municipality, and it's great to be able to acknowledge them.
Councillor Bent.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's been a long time coming in one way. It's one of my projects that when I come into council was to find out where the community plans were. And that's where this has arisen from. It's changed its name to be a placemaking project now. And it's driven, and we put the money behind to resource it. I think it's given connection now to the communities. There's some communities possibly not going to be 100% happy. Just give us time and be advocacy with us and communicate with the council. I think you will get achievements that you want in your local communities, because the rural communities for some time have been left out. There's no doubt about that. The community plans were dusted off, and no one knew what they were until we got stuck into them. We've gone over the history, what are we dwelling on that? We're going to move forward, and I think some of the projects that are there have been long-standing issues with some of the communities. So for the ones that have missed out, and I know there is some in my area, this first round, please keep your ammunition, I suppose, in one way dry, and keep pushing for them, because the money's there, and as long as this council's there, we put the money to support it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I just want to highlight what Councillor Benton said. I think it's important to communicate with council, because we do appreciate your feedback. So thank you, Councillor Benton, for touching on that.
Councillor Russell.
Sorry, I'm just going to butt in on that one for Councillor Russell there. You go first after me, Councillor Russell. I just wanted to point out that these plans are plans, they're not just plans. This is council's commitment, councillors, and with the CMT staff, that we are going to spend money in these rural communities that have needed to be spent over the years and haven't. So this is our commitment, that they're just not a plan to have a look at, and we hope to do it. There are going to be significant changes over the years with this council. Thank you.
Now you can have a go, Councillor Russell.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr Mayor. This is a promise. It's a promise to our communities that we will improve all the communities. And I'm fairly proud of that. And I know all my fellow councillors are too. So thank you very much.
Councillor Curry, you can respond.
I was just going to comment to say this is one of the first things that the councillors as a group agreed upon to make sure. So it's taken a long time to get off, but we're really happy with the direction it is. This isn't specifically about making sure that there's toilets there or there's roadside curbings, but it's about bringing the community together about what the community wants and needs in these smaller communities. So there are things in there that people might even scratch their heads about, wondering why, but it's really about bringing the communities together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Council plan revision.
Thank you. So this report is presented to Council for consideration of the adoption of the final 2017 to 2021 Council Plan, the 2018 revision. The review of the Council Plan and Strategic Resource Plan is a legislative requirement of Council and is consistent with sections 125, 126 and 223 of the Local Government Act. The major addition to this plan is the Councillor's vision and the new Feels Like Home branding for the rural city of Wangaratta. The Strategic Resource Plan has been updated to reflect proposed changes to the draft 2017-18 budget, which details how Council will fund the strategic intent of the Council Plan. The Council Plan was developed with direct input from community, and a number of pop-up consultations were undertaken to review the plan. 3 written submissions were received. The plan will continue to be revised on an annual basis to reflect the community aspirations and will continue to guide the future strategic direction of council, informing our service delivery, resource allocation and advocacy. Council will continue to report back to the community regarding the progression of priorities and the achievement of targets. The recommendation is that 1. Council adopts the final 2017 to 2021 Council Plan 2018 revision attached to this report for the purposes of Section 125 of the Local Government Act 1989. 2. Adopts the Strategic Resource Plan 2017 to 2021 2018 revision. Notifies submitters of its decision. And 4. Forwards the final 2017-18 Council Plan revision, including the Strategic Resource Plan, to the Minister for Local Government.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Fuller. Discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was just doing some math and verifying. So that 3 submissions equates to about 0.01% of submissions from the entire municipality. And I would just like to see that in 2019, when we come to this point, a little bit more consultation, a little bit more encouragement from the community to get behind us in terms of community engagement and to actually consult with us on these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Committees and matters, Section 86, committees and management.
Thank you. This report is presented to Council to seek endorsement for nominations of community members to represent a number of special committees of management where representatives are new or renominating upon expiry of their term on a committee of management. Section 86 committees are convened for the purpose of managing and controlling activities at council-owned or managed facilities. Section 86 of the Act provides that Council may delegate certain functions, duties or powers to a committee of management. Council acknowledges the great work of the Committee of Management volunteers and notes the recent resignations. Gordon and Denise Anderson from the Old Namunji Special Committee, Cheryl Bell from the El Dorado Memorial Hall and David Stier from the Whitfield Recreation Reserve. These volunteers have made a great contribution to the ongoing sustainability of their respective facilities. So the recommendation is that Council appoints the following representatives as listed in the report to the Section 86 Special Committees of Management, and the names are listed in that report and on the screen.
Thank you. Any questions from the gallery? Yes, Mr. Pruitt. Please state your name.
Good evening, everyone. Just a simple question about the numbers on the Special Committee. And by the way, I'm John Griffiths from Woorali, and my question more or less relates with the Woorali Hall Committee. I've got a family connection to that, where there's probably 5 or 6 members on that committee. I was just curious that the Oxley Council has something like, Oxley Committee has something like 12 or 14. I just wondered what the policy is regarding the actual numbers. Is there a limit? Is there a lower limit? Or just how does that work?
Thanks, John, for your question. Each committee has a terms of reference or instrument of delegation from the council that sets out the various requirements about how the committee's to operate and what the membership makeup will be. I'm not specifically familiar with what either Oxley or Woorali say, but they would need to be in line with whatever those terms are that are delegated to the group from the council are. And it's generally reflective of the number of user groups that are there and the size of the community and the complexity of the facility that they're managing generally.
So it doesn't necessarily reflect the interest or the lack of interest. If, say, Woorali only has 5 and Oxley has about 12.
No, that's not a factor.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the gallery? Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Fuller, Councillor Patrick. Any discussion? Councillor Bustle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank all these volunteers that do such great work with the Section 86 committees. And something that just came up yesterday, I don't think it would be a bad idea in the future if the Section 86 committees had some governance training and perhaps a standard handbook, training handbook. So I think it's something we should look at in the future. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried. (14.4) Events and attraction strategy.
This report is presented to Council to endorse the final Events and Attraction Strategy 2018 to 2023. The strategy sets out the rural city of Wangaratta's future direction in the support, curation and delivery of events within the municipality. It is aligned with the council plan and responds to the Wangaratta project, a master plan for the city and an internal audit held in 2015. The strategy provides direction on the funding, attraction and retention of tourism-related events, the support and curation of community events and expected outcomes. At its ordinary April meeting, Council resolved to place the draft event strategy on public exhibition for 28 days. There were 8 key objectives of the event strategy and they are detailed in the report. The implementation of these objectives will guide investment in council-operated venues, grants for external events and the curation of council's event program. Local businesses, tourism operators, community groups and individuals all participated in the development of the strategy and gave significant guidance into the priorities and the actions contained within the plan. During the public display period, a significant number of comments were received and the key themes identified from the community through this process included recognition of key tourism businesses hosting events, animal welfare concerns regarding rodeos within the municipality, concerns around the creation of regional hubs at Moyu, Eldorado and Glenrowan, formalising current event sponsorship into 3-year fixed agreements and consolidation of council-run events in rural townships, particularly Australia Day. As a result of community consultation, the following changes were made to the final strategy. The mission statement was updated to include surrounding community and visitors to the region, inclusion of heritage and cultural events to the events program undertaken by the rural city of Wangaratta, removal of the aerodrome as a bookable event space for camping, inclusion of tourism events in the regional overview, additional action 2.1.3 to develop partnerships with tourism businesses, changes to action 3.1.3 to undertake a comparison feasibility of the Rodeo Grounds and Merrill Park, change to action 3.2.6 to define the Rodeo Grounds as a multi-use venue, and a review of action 3.8.3, which was to continue to support Australia Day events in rural communities. The Events and Attraction Strategy 2018 to 2023 will allow Council to stimulate social and economic activity through the attraction of marquee events, provide certainty to tourism and community-related organisations in regard to the level of Council support, and provide direction on event infrastructure upgrades required to support that increased event activity. The implementation of this strategy is expected to occur over the next 5 years, and we'll be working with community and groups for that implementation, ensuring that barriers currently restricting the expansion of events are reduced. So the recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the final Events and Attractions Strategy 2018 to 2023 attached to this report with recommended changes. 2, notifies all submitters of the decision and the reasons for that decision. And 3, commences implementation of the final Events and Attractions Strategy 2018 to 2023.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? I'd like to move the recommendation. Councillor Bustle, Councillor Curry. Discussion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Penny. I know Penny, you've covered this, so it was announced with some of my constituents, so just in case they didn't hear what Penny said very clearly, the Rural Australia Days won't change. I want to make that clear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Active Wangaratta Grants Program.
So this report is presented to Council to provide recommendations in relation to the 2017-2018 Active Wangaratta Grants Club Participation Programs. So each year Council's Community Grants Program provides financial assistance to local, not-for-profit community groups and organisations for the development of programs. Council has developed the Active Wangaratta Grants Club Participation Program designed to facilitate active recreation opportunities for residents under 18 years of age. This is the first time that this grant has been awarded and has been designed to support the participation of young people who may experience barriers in participating in sport. There was strong interest in the fund, and the community has certainly embraced the opportunity to encourage young people to participate. $10,000 has been allocated to the Active Wangaratta Grants. It was well subscribed with 11 applications being received. Applications were assessed by officers from the Projects and Recreation team under assessment criteria approved by Council. The recommendation is that Council awards a total of $9,950 to fund the following projects as part of the 2017-2018 Active Wangaratta Grants Club Participation Program. The organisation's project and recommended funding is listed in the report and up there.
Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Fuller. Any discussion? Councillor Fitzpatrick.
I just want to say well done to the Royal City of Wangaratta for supporting our young people, because things like this go a long way, so thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that there's some sports in this group here that are not the mainstream ones, and it's great to actually see North East Roller Derby, etc., getting acknowledged out there, as well as all our major sports like the O&M through the football. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Infrastructure services, retail electricity. Mr. Clark.
Just prior to Mr. Clark starting, just to reiterate, I do have a conflict of interest in this item, as I am on the board of Procurement Australia, who ran the tender process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this report is brought to Council to consider awarding a contract for the supply of small market and large market electricity. Now, the small and large are in the main irrelevant. It refers to the amount of electricity that passes through any one metre, but they run as two separate tender processes. At the moment, we have a contract with AGL that expires on the 30th of June this year. There was the potential to extend that by 2 years, but we asked AGL for their new prices. We didn't believe they were competitive, so we decided to go out for market. We did that in conjunction with Procurement Australia and a large number of councils up and down East Coast Australia, as well as a number of very significant sized businesses. I believe it was the largest electricity supply tender ever, and as a result we got very competitive prices. I think most people are aware that electricity prices have been skyrocketing in recent years, and we were forecasting a significant increase, and whilst this is an increase, it's far less than anticipated, and indeed it dropped in the coming 2 years. So it's foreshadowing a reduction in electricity prices as more and more alternative energy sources come online. So the recommendation tonight is on on the board, but essentially it's to award the small market electricity to Origin Energy and the large market electricity to AGL.
Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery, someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Russell, Councillor Benton. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Supply and delivery of suitable gravel material.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this report is brought to Council to consider awarding contracts for the supply of gravel for the next 4 years. So Council goes through a lot of gravel and as was mentioned earlier, it's gone up from reshedding budget from 300,000 to 1.43 million in the last 6 years, so we're using more and more. So we've put in place some new smart contracts. We advertised this and we had 4 tenderers. We went through our advertised evaluation criteria and came up with 3 leaders, quite clearly ahead of the 4th. So we've decided to recommend that we award the contract to those 3 top tenderers, as it's actually beneficial for us to have quarries located throughout the municipality so that the haulage distance is lesser. So we've recommended that we go with the 3 quarries and that we'll utilise those based on the locality of the roads that we're constructing. So the recommendation tonight is on the board, but essentially it's to recommend that the 3 contractors be part of this panel of contracts for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Benton, Councillor Ruiz. Any discussion? With the motion, those in favour? Motion's carried. 15.3, civil works of the organics plant.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this report is brought to Council to consider awarding a contract to complete the civil works at the organics processing plant. Quite a bit of work has already occurred. Council has constructed the road in, the site's been cleared, the timber mulched and all the heads have been mulched and the balance used for firewood, and we've done quite a bit of work on the site cleaning up. We've got contracts in place for the electricity supply and the supply of the technical components are currently being completed in the USA and about to be shipped to Australia. So this contract's to do a small part of the actual road, which is the road that runs around the actual pad site. That's to construct a leachate pond, which is built to EPA standards, so it's quite a technical build. The pad for where the concrete cells actually go and crushed concrete pads for the maturation area. So we had 4 contractors submit tenders for this project. We went through the evaluation process and the leading tenderer was Longford Civil, which is a Rutherglen-based firm. They've got a lot of experience in doing this, the technical requirements of pondage, etc., to meet EPA audit requirements in recent times, and they scored the highest. So our recommendation tonight is that we award the contract to Longford Civil.
Thank you. Questions from the gallery? Yes, Jim, you can sit there.
Thank you very much. With regard to this organics plant, what is the projected time of it becoming operational, and will it be changed in size in some way to reflect the greater difficulty of coping with recyclable materials? Because some of these materials surely are recyclable that will go into that plant. So when and size.
So thanks, Jim. So we hope to have it in production around the end of February next year, and by production that will allow us to start trialling our processes. So part of the EPA permit requires us to prove that we can process to meet the Australian standards. So probably about the end of Feb we'll be putting material through the plant, and that'll be evaluated by independent auditors to make sure we're meeting all the requirements before we get the green light to go into full-scale operation. We certainly expect that by the end of the financial year. As to your second question on recyclables, the materials that are going into the organics processing plant at this stage, it's all the green bin material, so it's picked up from the curbsides, plus some mulched tree material that goes into the transfer stations. So nothing that goes into the yellow lidded bin is going through the organics plant at the moment. So the worldwide recycling issues aren't going to be assisted by the organics plant in this case. But we are doing considerable work on working with our contractor to develop new ways of recycling the yellow bin material, and a lot of work's been done in the northeast and the southern Riverina to make that a more viable proposition. So, and by that, better sorting of paper, glass crushing, and then utilisation of the glass in gravel and bitumen products, etc. So we've come a long way in the last few months. Does that answer your question?
Thanks very much. Yes.
Any other questions from the gallery? There's a couple of other parts of that recommendation to council.
Yeah, they're on the board.
Yeah. Yes. So would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Rees and Councillor Curry. Any discussion? Councillor Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can see this plant being just an absolute great innovator, and I think that this can potentially be an absolute showpiece for North East Victoria. And for the staff that's been involved in designing this, thinking of all that, well done to those people. I don't know who they are. I know Alan Clark's one of them. But just watch this space, because I think there'll be a lot of work and a lot of interest in 12 months' time. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like to make a comment here that I did go to the organics plant today, and it is the first of its kind in Australia, and we have the opportunity to be the leader in recyclable matter from not only our council. We've had expressions of interest from 6 other councils to look at their green waste going out to our organics plant. Not in the short term, we need to get it going, but before too long, I think we'll have other councils jumping at the chance to come to what will be the first recyclable plant of this nature in Australia. So well done to our staff and that have taken the effort to get it to this stage. Councillor Fuller.
I'd also like to commend Alan and his team on the work around here, and I look forward to steps in the future to move us towards soft plastic recycling potentially also. Given that it's Plastic Free July in a few weeks, it's important to see that the community's out there talking about these kind of waste products and what we can do to actually turn them into recycled or reusable, or better still, refusing some of these products. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just to finish it off, I'd just like to mention again that this, by having our green waste collection, has extended our landfill site by 20 odd years. So just having this green waste collection has done that, and obviously then the further expansion to our green waste here rather than shipping it elsewhere is going to save the council hundreds of thousands of dollars every year as well. Thank you.
I'll now put the recommendation. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Second part of that recommendation is authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the documents for the contract. And the third one is to disclose the contract price. Contract price today is $548,120 ex-GST, and including GST, $602,932. Thank you. Development Services. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item tonight is presented to Council to consider the feedback and summarise any changes proposed to the Greenbowen Heritage Precinct Conservation and Landscape Management Plan. This has been presented to Council previously before it went on public exhibition. The document has been on exhibition from the 20th of April to the 18th of May, over which time 6 submissions have been received. The submissions were generally supportive of the principles contained within the plan. However, some had requested some changes to improve the historical accuracy, which have been referred back to the consultants, and they verified the accuracy of the data contained within the report. So some changes have been made, some haven't. The consideration for Council tonight addresses Council's responsibility under the funding agreement from the federal government to acquit the grant before 30th of June 2018, and will allow the further implementation of this report and allow on-ground works to proceed further. The recommendation is on the screen.
Any questions from the gallery? No questions from the gallery. Someone like to move the recommendation? There's Councillor Curry, Councillor Fuller. Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Special committee reports, there's nil. Advisory committees, nil. Assemblies of councillors.
Through the Chair, there is a series of records of assemblies of councillors that occurred through May and June attached to this report, and the recommendation is that Council receives those.
Any questions from the gallery? Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Fuller, Councillor Benton. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion carried. We have no notices of motion. There's no urgent business. We're down to public question time. If you intend to come forward, please state your name and where you come from, and turn on the microphone. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, Brian Jones. I live in Wangaratta now, but I was travelling up on Boland Road yesterday, and the amount of potholes there that are extremely dangerous. Most of them would have been in the vicinity about 2 metres wide and probably about 6 inches deep. And I think most of them were on the west side of Foster's Road. I'd ask that you try and repair it as soon as possible, because it is potentially dangerous, and make sure that in doing so, it's with a cohesive material, not just loose gravel. Could that be done, please?
What road was it, sorry?
Boland Road.
Take note of that. Other questions? I have a question that's been submitted from Gary Nevin, who unfortunately is not here tonight. And the question for council: what does the council actually intend to study? It's the subject is the residential lifestyle land use study. And the question is, what does the council actually intend to study in this project, and how do they intend to study it? Darren?
If Gary was here, I would thank him for his question. So similar to what other studies, planning studies that Council has undertaken over the last few years, One has been things like the rural strategy. We've also looked at industrial land strategies, our growth area strategies and township plans. This particular one is looking at a couple of different areas that we haven't considered yet, which is specifically the low density residential and the rural living zones, which are zones that were not covered by any of the other assessments. And it will consider our existing demographic data in terms of sales, what people are particularly looking for, the location of our existing zones, and whether there is opportunities for either reorganisation of those existing zones or whether there's a requirement for any more. So it will determine a needs analysis and consider any constraints to the growth in those zones.
Thank you.
Phil Haynes is my name from Wangaratta. Just a general question. There's been lots of talk tonight about consultation, engagement, communication with the public, which I can see council places great importance upon that. There's always the temptation that when you try and engage people that you tend to engage in the same way and the same people respond back to us. I'd just be keen for a quick response about how you go about doing that, and have you thought about maybe doing some other things, trying different ways to engage people and to consult with people, and maybe try and get some buy-in from those who perhaps don't normally respond and react to what council is doing. So if the intent is to try and get as many people involved in the life of the city and the communities beyond that, how best can we do that, and are there other ways we can perhaps try and think about engaging with people? And I just make one comment. Often things are, we hand out written material and we look at tonight's notes. It's quite voluminous. The budget, etc., has got a lot of pages to it. We often expect people can read very well, and that's obviously, we hope that's the case, but many people can't. So how do we think about trying to engage people in different ways to try and make sure that we get a full range of ideas and feedback about what we're doing? So, a bit of a general question, please.
Thanks, Phil. I guess there's a few things I'd say. Some of the councillors may want to speak to this as well, potentially, but council has a relatively new community engagement strategy which provides some guidance on this issue. As part of that strategy, we have a group that's formed and meets within the organisation, made up of a range of people from across different parts of the organisation who all have various types of engagement responsibilities, for want of a better way to describe it. So part of the purpose of that group is to be looking forward at what are the pieces of work we're actually doing as an organisation, what type of consultation and engagement might we want to do for those pieces of work, and what might be the most appropriate form of engagement for those pieces of work. So it's intended that group will be kind of looking ahead and providing some advice and guidance around projects and how we consult and engage. We have and we will continue to try a range of different methods. We've used online consultation through our say, we've used social media. We fairly regularly use pop-up consultations where we actually go to places where we know there are already people gathered for a purpose. We do the traditional stuff around advertising and having documents available for people to review and make comment on. So we're certainly keen to explore different ways, and we would dearly love a much wider range of people. Councillor Fuller made the point earlier about 0.03 of the population or something responding to the council plan, which is clearly not ideal. So some things will be easier to get people engaged on than others. The CBD master plan a couple of years ago, we had hundreds of people make comments on. So there are examples where people have been highly engaged, and equally there are examples where we haven't had quite that success. But we're certainly very happy to hear suggestions about alternative ways that we might do that better, Phil. We're happy to try a whole range of mechanisms to try and get people's input into things.
Any councillors wish to comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity here. I think it's very important as councillors that we also meet regularly with our constituents. I certainly meet regularly in Greater South, Moyu, Oxley, Millwall, Rowley, King Valley, and I think it's important so that constituents have the chance to go and meet face to face. All they do is just pick up the phone and talk to their councillor, meet them. I think that's very, very valuable. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I can make a comment, one of the first things that I did when I got elected as the mayor was to put aside 3 hours every Wednesday morning and sit downstairs in the office for members of the community to come and visit and raise issues with me. I was originally getting on a Wednesday morning upwards of 10 people. That gradually fell away, even though we advertised it every week in the Chronicle and in other media that the mayor was available on a Wednesday morning for people to come and talk to him. And I took it upon myself to stop that because I was sitting there for 3 hours. I might get one, but for a few weeks I got no one. And I certainly believe that I have enough things to do for this council rather than sit in an office downstairs for 3 hours and look at the wall. So I did stop that. But that's another way that we were originally getting some comment, but no longer. So it's been stopped. There's still the ability for people to, ratepayers and residents, to ring downstairs to the service desk, and they will make arrangements for me to meet that person or persons. But that's where it sits at the moment with my Councillor Fuller.
And I'd just like to point out that it's quite frustrating to see that the place that people most likely choose to comment is obviously Facebook and things like that, and often it's in the wrong regard to where the commentary should actually be. And an example of that would be the development of the plaza, which is not our doing as such, it's the developers there, and a lot of the vitriol that went on was about how we'd made a silly mistake, and often people choose the wrong avenue to comment on the wrong thing without realising that they're not actually talking about the relevant facts on that. And it's much easier to actually talk to us. We're all available via email and phone to contact us and to have a proper conversation and to get the right information, and encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I think I might be the last one.
Of gazumped councillor in trouble. I think it's worth mentioning, because it hasn't really come out, that there has been some innovative ways and different ways of engagement in the last few years. So council staff and councillors have attended pubs on occasion, sporting groups, footy training nights. So they've done a range of different things to try and get those people who don't normally communicate with council, some of the different not-for-profit groups around the region as well. So there has been a real effort to bring those people in. And even if we go back to the CBD master plan, there was a whole range of different activities that really engaged with people of all different ages. There's been a lot of work with the schools when it's been applicable. So there's been a real effort, and certainly the old council hall and council meeting and public meeting in the town hall isn't the way we try and communicate and engage with the community now. So I think we've come a long way from those days.
Councillor Curran. Sorry you usurped, but he had his on first.
Community engagement, it's a two-way street. First of all, to get the people out to talk to us, they actually want a response. So, and I think if you have a look at traditionally what's been happening through government and so forth, you hear a lot of people speaking up, but no one really listening. And I think this council has potentially done things considerably different. We're trying to go out and we're trying to do things, but we're still really not hitting the mark with the engagement. It's one thing that's been talked around the table a lot with councillors, and you know, do we go to community groups, do we get them engaged? But you know, I think we had just a little bit over 600 responses around the council vision. In a town of 25,000, it's still not enough. I don't believe that's enough. But what I'd like to hear from the community about what we have to do different, because I know before I come on the council, there was a lot of things that I heard about, you know, things happening within the council, and I didn't know. And that was my engagement. That was my engagement in what was happening in the town. So I think there's a lot of things that have to change. It's not only us going to the people, but it's the people have to come back and engage with us. So, and with that communication, we can expand. We can be a much better council if we know. But when we hear we're not doing the right thing by minority groups, and it's traditionally the minority groups that are anti-change and anti-things. I only need to go and have a talk about the pool and things like that. But when you go on here to the sporting community, which don't speak up, there is a big support for it. So, you know, the engagement's really a hard thing to try and do it and do well. The council have done it, they've mixed it up. And, you know, where we talk about 600 in the council vision, I think it was 600, it was a little bit over. You know, around neighbouring councils, that was huge. And let's be honest, 600 out of a regional population of 25, that's still pretty poor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the gallery? Mr. Drew.
Mr. Mayor, I hope you don't mind me just making a comment about the last question. Can I? Is that acceptable? Just that I attended a pop-up meeting about projects at Millwall Hall. It was a series of pop-up meetings, and I thought it was very well attended, very well organised, and I certainly really appreciated the opportunity to speak to 2 or 3 different people about ideas that I had to improve Millwall and Warrawee. So that's just a personal comment, and perhaps add also about councillors going out to meetings, and I think it was yourself, Ken, and Harry went out to the CWA 70th anniversary of Warrawee CWA, and I know that was appreciated out there as well. Okay. I've got a couple of questions, don't mind, I'll try and keep them fairly simple. There's the first one is about social welfare, and it's really what came out in the Chronicle on Monday prompted me to ask this question, where there's reference to a decline in crime. It's a bit of a negative issue, but I hope you don't mind me raising this. And what caught my eye was that over the page was reference to family violence, and I don't understand that there weren't any figures provided about family violence, and that's an area that I don't have any personal connection, but I just have a strong feeling about the problems, and I just wondered if the council is much involved in that area of social welfare problems of trying to reduce the problems that a lot of women face in the community.
Thanks, John. It's a really important issue to raise. I guess our involvement is various and multiple. We have a municipal public health and wellbeing plan, for example, with ourselves and a range of other agencies who have responsibilities for those services put together. And it has a collective action list, I guess, about the things that those various agencies will do about particular problems and health issues in our community, and those agencies meet on a regular basis to track how those initiatives are actually going. We meet fairly regularly with other agencies like local police and Vic Roads. In fact, we held one of our regular meetings down at the police station recently and had a presentation on some of the initiatives that the police are involved in, so we have a really good working relationship with both our local and regional police and other agencies. We provide a range of social services ourselves through children's services, aged care, home and community care, packages, those sorts of things. So I guess it's not a very specific answer to what's a very broad question. There's a range of other community safety initiatives that we get involved in through the safe and good design of public places. We're looking at initiatives like CCTV cameras in the CBD area. So there's a whole raft of things that various parts of the organisation are involved in and indeed very interested in.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's important that those sorts of details do get out to the public, because you don't always hear about those sorts of things.
I'm not sure that they would be available to to the newspapers. Would numbers be available, Steve?
From where?
Well, the family violence.
Yeah, you can source them. The crime statistics website will have all that detail.
Yeah, I did have a look. I tried to get the figures about family violence because, as I said, they weren't shown in the Chronicle, and there is a website, and I think a lot of websites may be similar, but very hard to work your way through to actually find figures to say compare the past to the present.
Give me an email after the meeting, I'll send them to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Griffiths, with figures, you've got to be careful, but I would probably recommend you talking, if you are interested, to Inspector Kerry Hicks, because figures can also not be quite accurate. I work in the social sector when I'm not at council, and also with family violence and domestic violence, people have actually got to report it, and a lot of people don't report it, so your facts and figures could be different. But if you want to talk about it, I would recommend seeing Inspector Kerry Hicks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, normally I wouldn't allow another question from you, because we've got two tonight.
No, I've only had one. Really,
You
one
had a
question of general. The other one was about.
Yes, but that's two questions. And Mr. Fox isn't here tonight, so.
I can recall, I'm a little bit disappointed because I prepared quite a lot of material about the second question. I do recall allowing, that it was allowed 4 questions over at Everton, and at the meeting over there, four questions from the one person, and at a meeting at Millerwood, I think there were 3 questions containing a long, rambling statement about real estate. So when I've prepared a little bit and I keep it very simple, I just think it's a bit unfair that you won't.
No, I'm allowing the question.
I'm sorry you are. I'm misunderstanding what you said. I'm sorry.
But normally my councillors would say that you've had your 2 questions.
So if I ask something during the council,
that's included as
question
part.
as well.
Yes, that's one of you.
I won't ask that question another time. My second question was about waste, and it's kind of a follow-on from a meeting previously where I was raising the problem about waste and the fact that we are moving slowly, I believe, to reduce waste in terms of plastic bags that are one use only at supermarkets. But that's going to be very slow, and I just look at the number of plastic bags in the fruit section, there's just so many there. But my specific concern tonight was just to raise about takeaway coffee cups. There's been some stuff on the TV, and it's brought out just how many millions of coffee cups, reusable, non-reusable coffee cups. And I've got just a couple of examples of Keep cups. I don't know how many people are familiar with Keep cups. I reckon there's not many people do. But there's 2 examples of Keep cups. And I just don't think, I think I almost fell over when I saw someone walking with one down the street of Wangaratta. I see so many disposable ones. My question then is, does the council see a role in trying to reduce the number of disposable coffee cups that are just thrown away?
I think that's in your area.
There's a few people with interest in this, but short answer is yes, we do, John. In fact, within council, we have our own cups which staff can buy. We have a large and small Keep cup available for staff, and we encourage all staff to use them. I think they're far wider spread than what you seem to indicate. There has been work in the industry to look at fully recyclable cups, and of course there are some out there, but there's issues with some people would say they're not as effective, and there's heat issues, etc. But I know there's some work on a different style of disposable cup that would be fully recyclable as well. So there is work going on in that space. I'm also aware that there's some businesses are refusing to fill cups now because of hygiene concerns. So that's another issue we face. But we're doing work within council, and our educational officer on the recycling side works in that space as well.
Thank you for that.
I'd just like to talk a bit further on that too, if you've got a couple of moments there on recyclable cup. There is a company in Adelaide at the moment that is, as Alan said, refusing, and it's a company that's 130 coffee stores throughout South Australia, and they're refusing to use people's recyclable cups or reusable cups because they feel that you bring them in and you say they're clean, and are they clean, and your hands have touched them before they go to the barista, and then they go and grab a takeaway cup normally, and that's the reason why. So that could become more widespread. It was muted on Channel 7 recently in the last week that the second biggest landfill item in Australia is coffee cups at the present, and there is a lot of work going on to try and find an alternative to a fully recyclable coffee cup. That's, as you know, the lid is currently recyclable because it's plastic. It's a plastic that can be recycled up to 7 times, but there's now even lids coming out that can be recycled over and over forever. And it's just the coffee cup with the plastic liner inside is the thing that cannot be recycled because it is plastic film. Even if you got the plastic film out, it still can't be recycled with that plastic film. So the cardboard can, but the process to get it out is a ridiculous thing, so there needs to be another solution. And there could be one coming.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, no.
That's right. And also, I sit with Mary and some other people on a Wastewise group in the community, and on that we have 4 staff members, Courtney, Megan and Mitch from the waste group within council, and then Vanessa from the environmental sustainability sort of thing. And it's very nice to see them inputting a lot of input into that conversation around, opportunities for not only council but the whole community to come together. And if you stay tuned, I think you'll see a lot of work around Plastic Free July, which will address the many forms of takeaway items, whether it's cutlery, straws, plastic cups, coffee cups, etc. So stay tuned for the next couple of weeks, John.
Thanks. Thanks, John.
Good evening, councillors. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. My name is Rod Ambrose from Miriwai. And if I may have 2 questions as well. One of the projects is in Miller is the drainage on Snow Road next to the Miller Cafe. Can we please just have some clarification exactly where that is? Is that virtually in front of the Snow Road Bakery, old shop, chemist shop, motel?
What we're doing at Miller and similar in Springhurst is doing a concept design for a bigger area than that. So we're looking at essentially from the hall down through the intersection down towards Brown Brothers and along the road across beyond the bakery and beyond the shops in the opposite direction. So we're looking to come up with concepts to do drainage, footpaths, car parking for that whole intensive area of Miller there. And that will pick up that drainage in front of the bakery area.
And the motel?
Yes.
Thank you. That one, it's not a question, but it's an introduction.
So can I just say that's doing the concepts this year, and it may allow us to do some detailed design of a portion of that work, but that's what's in next year's budget.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I also tonight represent the Miller Gourmet Region Association. The annual general meeting was held last Thursday night, and I was elected the president of that. I'm also the owner of the Miller Motel, hence my reasons for that previous question. And I also have with me 2 other office bearers tonight, in our treasurer, Megan Garrett, and also Sedwin Brown, our vice president as well. And we would like to introduce ourselves to council.
Thank you.
And we will be in touch.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? There's no other questions. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and your attention tonight. It has been a long night, and remember that tomorrow we've got $63.5 million to spend in the 2018-19 financial year. And right, I'm not that old, Ruth. But yes, the budget has been a long section, and I'm pleased that we've been able to accommodate many things in the budget, and that we'll see a lot of promotion of Wangaratta and district in the next 12 months. And thank you all, and I'll declare the meeting closed.